Mhm.
Wow, it's great to see you all here. Wow. Hello, hello. My name is Chris Kyle. I'm here with Soma Miller, my dear friend. It is great to see you all rolling in. We appreciate you showing up for this special event. And Soma and I are really excited to share what we've been working on and what we've been working on in our own lives, but also working with our clients and students and others. So really appreciate you all being here for the future of men's leadership. And it's so wonderful to see both men and women here, and anybody that might be non-binary as well. So welcome. So welcome everyone. And what we're going to do today, let me just give you a little overview. So we're going to be sharing these three core principles, and certainly they're not the only principles, but they're principles that Soma and I, in our years of work with men and women, have kind of distilled these three to kind of core pieces of what is a new emerging paradigm of leadership for men particularly. Like there's a flavor for what men struggle with, like there's a flavor for what women struggle with, and a flavor for non-binary folks and what they struggle with. So we're going to go through these three principles, and we're going to create a little bit of Q&A time at the end of the three principles. Then we're also going to take a little bit of time to share with you about this upcoming retreat, this men's leadership retreat we have in Costa Rica, and we'll share a bit about that. And then we're going to, at the end of the call, roll into a Q&A. We'll have some time for Q&A in the 60 minutes, but we're going to stay on beyond the 60 minutes. So anybody that's inspired or wants to share more, we're going to stay on as long as there's questions and interactivity. So I know some of you may need to leave at 60 minutes, that's fine. But if you can stay on even a little bit longer, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, there's going to be a juicy conversation happening after sort of the presentation, if you will. So, and just remind yourself too, I know Soma and I will kind of be watching the room for muting and all that, but please keep yourself muted. There'll be options for you to, an opportunity for you to share later. So again, welcome to the future of men's leadership. So I'm just going to share just a high level context, and then Soma is going to share a little bit more. I just feel like in my own life recently, I've been asking the question of what is needed now in the world, particularly around how we show up as leaders in our lives, in our families, in our communities, in our relationships, and in our teams and organizations. It feels like it's time to step into a different kind of leadership, a more empowered leadership, a more earth-based leadership. I see lots of people where it's already happening, so it feels emergent, folks. Soma and I want to be a continued voice for how do we shift the way we are and the way we be with ourselves and with the world at large, and with whoever we may be leading or projects we may be leading, right? In any context. It's time, it's time. There's a lot of shit going on in the planet right now, and we all know that. And it's maybe for the first time ever for human beings is a true existential threat of that our planet is suffering under our hand. And I do believe there's ways out. I do believe there's a hope around this. I'm not a doom and gloom kind of guy. So this is what we're going to be exploring today. And so I'll turn it over to Soma. Thanks, Soma.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thanks everybody for being here. I imagine if you're here, especially as a man, there's probably a sense of a calling to a greater contribution to the world. To me, I sense that, as far off as we get as men, there's always that inner voice that's trying to direct us towards a greater purpose and a greater mission in the world. And, we can often ignore that. And I'll talk about, what causes us to ignore that in a minute. But I just want to acknowledge those of you that are here. I imagine you're here for a reason. And I imagine part of that is, in a way, wanting that to make that greater contribution, and also to live into a self-actualized, like the highest version of you, and recognizing that the way that you show up, the way that you show up in your way of being, and the actions that you are taking in your life in all domains, whether you're in an intimate relationship or as a parent or leading an organization, there's an impact, right? We're always making an impact to every one of our choices. And so, my hope is that the men that are here on this call are willing to really take responsibility for that impact. And, on a global level, I think there's a lot of people waking up right now to this need for a shift in how leadership is showing up in the world. And we love the way that if those of you that are familiar with Charles Eisenstein's work, this idea of the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And, it's this sort of intangible sensing of what the heart can recognize, but maybe the mind can't yet fully grasp. And this is part of this idea of emergent leadership, is this sensing into that space. And, some of that shift includes how are we working together collectively? How are we collaborating? How are our actions impacting the greater whole? And this recognition of our interdependence. And the great leaders that I see all have a sense of this larger purpose, this sense of responsibility for impact, and the capacity to clearly articulate their vision, their message, but also to listen. It's not just this my way or the highway that we've been taught about leadership, this sort of top-down command and control leadership. And this is part of the work that I see for men in particular, because of our deep conditioning, to be providers, and the way that most of us have been taught to provide out of, from this fear scarcity mindset and way of being. And it puts us into this kind of default mode of just getting shit done. And in many cases, hiding our inadequacies or our weaknesses, even if they're, just self-perceived. And in general, kind of lone wolfing it is the way I see it. It's just this sense of like isolation when things get difficult. And on top of that, on top of our own sort of internal conditioning that we're working with to be able to step into a new way of leading, we're also dealing with this, what we call the distraction vortex, which is, the social media, the amount of time we're spending online, all this stuff that's accessible at our fingertips to pull us out of the moment, pull us out of connection, keep us out of presence and out of relationship to the people that we care about the most, and also what's most important to us. We're so marketed to around these things that are just trying to hook our attention, but really have no deeper meaning. And so, our call to a deeper level of leadership is really looking at how can we create a new culture that embodies a sense of deep connection and reverence and awe for the beauty of life that's possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Soma. And let me spotlight myself here. I just want to say that in this moment, I'm just tuning into this moment. I'm just appreciating all of you being here. Just feeling deep gratitude. There's 65 people here, and both men and women, and thank you. And also it just feels like an opening for me and for Soma, both of us, to continue to just speak our truth. I feel like the last few years I've been holding back, like trying to meet what people expect or want. And so this is an opportunity for us, doing this, to continue to come forward with what we see as possible for ourselves and for people around us. So thank you. So we're going to go into the three principles that you saw on the sign up page. And what I'd like to offer you is that let's use the chat. So as we go through these principles, feel free if you want to make a comment, that's awesome. But also if you have a question that's coming up for you, just type that question in. Both Soma and I are going to kind of watch the chat. And then as we get complete with the third principle, we're going to open the space to answer some questions. Then we're going to share a bit about the retreat, and then we're going to go into a kind of a capstone of Q&A at the end. So that's kind of the flow. So just to reiterate the three principles that we're going to dive into now, principle one is expanding into nature's wisdom. Principles 2 is cultivating strength with heart. And principle number 3 is embodying deep listening, which also has an element of embodying deep presence and listening. So those are the three that we're going to be diving into. And so I'll kick it off here and start with principle number 1. And this one is, Soma and I were figuring out which ones do we want to present and talk about. This one is super near and dear to my heart, expanding into nature's wisdom. Over at least the last 5 or 6 years, I have been personally investing more time in me connecting with and communing with the natural world, as Bill Plotkin and others say, the more than human world. And so this has been a piece for me in noticing that my own capacities in leadership have evolved by just spending more quality time in nature, whether that's at a park in a city or out in deep nature, doesn't matter, just really connecting myself. So kind of the way we see this first one is it's really a deep, intimate, and abiding connection to the natural world, so that your sort of the clarity, insight, and capacity for you as an individual and as a leader can be tapped into, can be drawn from nature, that it doesn't have to come from our heads and from our communities and other human beings, that nature has wisdom in and of itself. And there's really, I consider 3 parts to this. So to unpack it a little bit more, and then Soma's going to share a story, and then we're also going to share a practice for each of these principles with you. And so the way I look at it is it's 3 points. First point is that it's simply recognition is first. Recognition that there is an intelligence in the natural world, that this complex living system that is planet Earth that we're a part of is actually geared toward and oriented toward helping all creatures and elements of the living system to thrive. Now, thriving doesn't always mean, it can mean that a major forest fire is what opens up a pine cone to allow a redwood to grow. So sometimes thriving means that there's challenges and there's fire, but then what does that fire bring, or what does this challenge bring? It brings potentially new life or something that's evolving. So it's the recognition that we're part of this complex system and that we can continue to learn from it and continue to find ways to harmoniously live within this living system. And I like to say that in some ways that we as human beings, especially in our modern world, in our postmodern world, and especially in the West, this is not the case for other communities around the world or indigenous communities, but we've just broken that relationship with nature, with the natural world. It doesn't mean that we're irredeemable or anything. It's like literally over the last 500 years since the scientific revolution and then the industrial revolution, we've kind of broken that relationship. We've lost the rhythm and the flow of being connected to nature. So how do we come back to that? So the second part of this is opening oneself to the insight, the guidance, and the wisdom of nature, so that I'm actually not just recognizing it, but I'm allowing my beingness to open to it. That's different than just appreciating it. I can go out and watch a sunset out there and go, wow, that's such a beautiful sunset. I really appreciate that, versus really allowing it to move me, or to allow myself to open to what is it that I'm receiving here? What is it that, is there any, even as I kind of open myself, is there some guidance here? Is there something that I've been mulling on that now I'm sitting out here in nature and there's some answer or some direction? And then the final piece of the 3 of this is that it's experiencing and being willing to deepen the intimacy with nature, so that there is a sense of I'm here. I'm with you all. I'm with you, trees. I'm with you, animals, the birds. I see you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Right? It's an intimacy. We learn so much about intimacy in relationship with other human beings, and we're always trying to build intimacy in our social networks and go deeper. I do believe this intimacy extends to the natural world. So it's not only this intimacy with human beings, but the similar kind of intimacy and welcoming and connection with the natural world that as leaders now, we begin to draw on this for our own, not only for our own grounding, but for wisdom that comes from a place that we can't necessarily imagine. And it opens us in a way where now we're thinking, this is the key for the future, is we're thinking about the entire living system and all creatures on it. That's our operating principle now, right? We're no longer thinking about just my world and my company and my people and my family or my human family or whatever. It's the whole living system. And it's not just about thinking that, it's about intimately experiencing that in a way that changes our thoughts, patterns, choices. And any of you that have spent time in nature, you know what I mean. But how can we weave that in and even go deeper and trust that there is actual wisdom and insight and guidance from the more than human world, from the natural world? All right. Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. And so I'm gonna try to share a story of a really powerful experience that illustrates this in one way. I think there's many ways to go about this. I happen to be kind of an intense human being that likes to put myself in intense situations. So I'll tell a little bit about a story that I had when I was in my early 20s. I was in a relationship that, I actually got dumped, and I was hurting bad. And I already had a pretty deep connection with nature. And I knew, just intuitively that just going to spend some time in the wilderness would, at least heal something in me. And so, and I'd never been really led through something like this. I just kind of found my way into it organically, which was to, put myself out on what is done in many traditional cultures, what's known as a vision fast. So I went out without any food in the middle of the wilderness. I was in Southern California in the Sespe Wilderness, and just to see what would happen. And what happened, a couple days in, once I started to settle in, I found myself in a conversation. It was probably like high noon, and I saw my shadow on the ground. And I started just intuitively to dialogue with my shadow. Shadow work is kind of a popular thing these days. And, I wasn't even really aware what it was at the time. But, from a Jungian psychology perspective, the shadow is like whatever we hide, repress, or deny within us. And so during this conversation, as I heard myself speak aloud, everything that I was saying was all these judgments that I was having about my partner at the time, just the ways that I would judge her, resent her. And it was just so clear to me, this conversation with my own shadow, that I was doing what's called projecting. It's where I take these kind of disowned parts of my being and place them on another human. And the gift in this was that I not only got to see the impact of my unconscious self in relationship and the pain that I was causing, and to like really feel that fully, feel the pain of how I was hurting this other human being and actually pushing her away, even though there was love that was present. And with that, I was able to just in that practice, able to pull those parts back to me, and creating this sense of wholeness and coming back into my power. And there was much more to this whole, 3-4 day journey that I did out in the wilderness, but this was a really impactful piece. And this is part of the power and the magic that we're speaking to when we talk about expanding into that natural wisdom. Like there's, if we trust in the process of being in nature, things will come through. And one last piece I would bring to this is we're so overly domesticated as modern humans, and we evolved for millennia to be in relationship to the wild, and it makes us forget that wild part of ourselves, which also includes, these things that society would deem crazy, like talking to your shadow in the middle of nowhere, right? Like that's the kind of stuff that can happen that unlocks so much wisdom. So I'll just leave that story there and hand it back over to you, Chris.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. I can totally resonate with that in some of my solo adventures out in nature and what's come up for me and the wisdom that's arisen from those. And so what I would like to do is share a practice. I've been working and developing all sorts of mindful practices for being in nature, sort of nature-based mindful practices. So I want to give you one that many of you might already know or even used yourself, but just to ground this is this expanding into nature's wisdom, using and leaning in to nature as guide and teacher. One way to do that is to just expand yourself, all your senses and the fullness of you when you're out in nature, to expand your presence in nature. So this practice I call sit spots, a sit spot, SITSPOT, sit spot, and just write in the chat if any of you know what I mean by sit spot. So this is where you go out into nature anywhere. Literally can be Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, Central Park, or you're somewhere in your neighborhood or just outside of town or wherever you live, or in deep nature, wherever you go, a long hike, you have a certain hike you go into, is that you can find a spot wherever you are and actually sit on a log, sit on a rock, sit on the ground, whatever it is. This is truly about sitting, not moving, because there's a different energy as we move through nature. Beautiful, walking, hiking, trekking, moving, I'm looking, I'm moving, versus sitting still. So the sit spot is to sit still. And the intention is to, once you settle yourself and you're comfortable, is to open all of your senses. Consciously do that. What am I hearing? Really try to expand into hearing the sounds of the area that you're in. If it's a forest, what are the forest sounds, the birds? Your smell. What do you notice smell? The touch, so the feeling of air on your skin, whatever that is, the breeze, the sunshine. What are you seeing? Of course, so there's going to be a lot of visual stimulation. So what you're doing is activating all your senses and bringing yourself fully present into that moment with this beautiful nature around you. Hopefully it's where there's no other human beings around. So you might just to kind of allow that to be you with nature communing, and you're not hearing voices, or it's not on a busy beach, although you absolutely can do that too. But I think there's more depth when you're not hearing human or seeing other human beings. And then the invitation is to continue to open your presence to that space and time. Obviously, for every human being, thoughts will come up, and that's fine. Just like a meditation practice or a mindful practice, notice thoughts coming up and let them go. Notice and release them and come back to your senses. This is the power of nature, particularly, is that I can come and really start looking at that pine tree and then noticing how the bark is kind of burned out. Oh, maybe that was a fire. Oh, let that go. Keep noticing with all of your senses and coming back to the present moment. And just keep doing that. Keep allowing, notice thoughts come up. If you're starting to think about yesterday's issue or tomorrow's meeting, just let that be and let that flow and allow yourself to be fully present. And then once you're feeling like more and more grounded and fully present, then the invitation from there is to expand your awareness. So now, how far can I hear? Can I hear beyond that local bird, the bird that's near me, to some kind of chirp or call even further away? And then notice if you can also see something even further, where you might look beyond the trees or to the sky, and you're just allowing your whole awareness and your presence to expand. Staying present, staying in your senses, your sense body. And my recommendation is that you do that for at least a half an hour, 30 minutes. Some can do that for an hour. If you feel inspired, 2 hours or more. But there's something magical about getting beyond 30, getting beyond 20 minutes and getting to 30 minutes, where your body, your cortisol levels are actually dropping. Your body's tuning into the earth and to the energy of the earth, and your system's being regulated. This is all science about spending time in nature. There's a lot of science around this. I won't go into all of that, but you're going to notice something shift as you slow down, you're sitting, your awareness, you're moving beyond that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and can be magic in that. And allow anything that comes up, especially as you move beyond 30 minutes, there might actually be thoughts or things that come up as more guidance than worries or fears or the past or the future, to what is here now. Who am I? What am I? What is important? Those kinds of things. The key is not to not have any expectation of that, folks. Just notice that. This is just about grounding, being present, opening your senses, and being with nature. And if something happens, great. And you can even bookmark that to explore later. Like, ooh, that was good. Let me just bookmark that, and I'll think about it or mull on it or write about it later. So that's Sit Spot. I encourage you. It's Thursday here, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So our encouragement is you do that sometime over the next 3 days. You have a weekend coming up, and you go into some natural environment and do at least a 30-minute Sit Spot. There you go. Back to you, Soma.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. And there is a little more I want to add. I'm trying to hold back because I know we have limited time here. But yeah, I mean, the one point I would make is, that magic is really just about spaciousness, in our psyche and our consciousness. And oftentimes we're in this culture that we live in, we're so direct and trying to get the thing done in this kind of agenda driven, hyper focused experience. And so it's a different type of way of being that allows new information to come online, new capacities. That's some of that magic. So principle number 2. So principle number 2 is about cultivating strength with heart. And what we mean by that is it's a potent mix of both fierce compassion, courage, and the vulnerability that allows for authentic connection and empowerment in any relationship or situation. And I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper on what is fierce compassion, because it's kind of an interesting term, right? And the way that I would define it is there's a deep level of curiosity that's kind of unrelenting. It's so committed to what is the truth in every moment that it lets go of these ideas of rights and wrongs, right? This needing to solve or figure things out, and it allows us to unwind in our relationship to ourselves, and also creates more of that spaciousness in our relationship for people to open to us. It's really about this deep embodied empathy of trying to get another's experience and what their world is like internally. And it's really in contrast to this kind of polarized world that we're living in currently. This idea of this is the right way and that's the wrong way. We saw this really strong with COVID, and the truth is nobody really knew what was the best way to handle the situation. And so we're at this point in our evolution where the capacity to hold paradox, to hold seemingly paradoxical truths simultaneously in our hearts. And it's our hearts that can hold that. It's not our minds. Our minds are wanting to put things into boxes and categorize. So this is what I mean by this strength of heart, because it takes, we think of compassion as a soft skill, but it's not easy to look our enemy in the eyes and get curious. It's much easier to shut them out and make them wrong, right? And so, another part of this fierce way of being in compassion can also show up as truth-telling, right? Where a truth that is not there to necessarily cast somebody out or judgment, but to call them forward into a deeper way of being. And sometimes we have to bring that kind of authentic truth to our relationships from a place of love that serves the greater good. It might be like a little bit of a poke in the moment that hurts, but it's the kind of hurt that expands us into a more evolved, realized version of ourselves. And the last piece I would add, and this is obviously something that's kind of a buzzword these days, is this idea of vulnerability. And it's still like, especially as men, this word is like kind of crunchy for us, like because it kind of goes against everything that we've been taught about how we need to be. But if I think what we as men are learning to embody is how vulnerability is not just about like bleeding our emotions all over the place, but it's really like, are we leaning into our edges in life, in our relationships, and speaking those truths and opening our hearts when they want to close, and bringing forward the pieces that of ourselves that we want to hide. And that is actually a super courageous, all those things are courageous moves that show a ton of strength. And of course, as men, like we want to be strong, we want to identify as strong beings, which is great. But I think we need to redefine what is strength, because there's many versions of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Soma. Yeah, really. What's so cool, everyone, for me is that Soma and I have sort of talked about the flow of this call, but he's sharing stuff that we haven't talked about. Like I'm just hearing his wisdom come through, and it's beautiful. It's nice to have this be emergent. What he's sharing is kind of emergent in this space right now. So thank you. Thanks, Soma. Yeah. So what? Because we really wanted to, as you're seeing the flow of this, we wanted to share also stories. So Soma just shared his story about his vision fast, and to kind of personalize this, and also for us to be more transparent and vulnerable. And so the story, I'm going to share a story about this, Strength with Heart, and it's really a story about vulnerability. And for me, seeing myself on the other side of really deep vulnerability with other people. And so a few years back, my mother passed away. And there was a part of me at the time it's all okay. It's, natural part of life. And so there's a part of me that was contained and controlled around it. I had sadness, I had grief, but I don't think I was really allowing myself to feel the full shakiness and the vulnerability of losing my mother when I was in my late 30s. So, it was like, oh, okay, I can just move through this. And then I went to my men's circle. So I had a men's circle at the time. And I just showed up in that circle talking about she had just passed. And there was a moment where I just made it like it was a choice to just open more vulnerably, to be supported by these men that I care about, that I love. And I just allowed myself the full permission in that moment. It was just the sort of opening that I needed for my mother's passing, to literally let myself just fall apart. Absolutely just fall apart. And I just crumpled on the ground and just sobbing, and was held by these men in that space, physically held and emotionally held, to just allow me to grieve where I hadn't really fully grieved. It's like I was mentally grieving before, and this was the full body, full vulnerability, full grieving, that at some level, that up until that moment, I hadn't really allowed myself to literally open myself and be that vulnerable, that open, that raw. And it was a transformative moment for me. It was probably at least a half an hour of no questions, no processing of me, just me sobbing, crying, and being held by good men that supported me in that process. So what I noticed sort of coming out of that, and in that day and the days to follow, is that I found a new kind of sense of resilience and openness, that my vulnerability is what most other human beings, and I think even the planet, that's wanted. That's like, I feel you now, Chris. I see more of you. I can get to know you better in this place where you're being fully open, transparent, bringing your heart, willing to be messy, willing to let it all fall apart. And there was more love and care in a way that I could take in the coming back to me than before that like I could really feel it, and I could sense that by what I thought was weakness, or that I shouldn't go there because that won't get me what I want, the love and affection and all that. It was actually the opposite, that in my vulnerability opened up a place of where it was a level of strength and willingness to go there. And this is what Soma was alluding to, is a courage for me, whatever was happening in that moment, the courage to just say, I'm bringing it. This is my heart. This is my woundedness. And so that's the strength. That's this paradox of, in that vulnerability, that perceived weakness that so many men share, women too, I get that. I just think there's a sort of a level of, don't be weak, don't cry. Men don't cry, little boys don't cry. Boom, boom, boom. We're hit with that all the time. Those are some of the norms, the cultural norms around men and women and male and female. And I just now know that more and more, that I'm more transparent and open in the right settings, that my vulnerability is a way that helps me connect. I feel stronger in my vulnerability. I feel more grounded. So there's this quality of that paradox of, in what I perceive as my weakness is strength, is presence, is realness. That's my story.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris. And I have many similar stories of being held and kind of letting go into that space with men. And it's always been a gift. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I want to lead you guys through a short practice, which is, normally something that would take about 15 minutes. So I'm going to do my best to try to bring you there in a couple of minutes. And this is a variation on a practice that I learned from one of my teachers, and it's an embodied practice. So it's an invitation to really feel these qualities deep in your body. And so if you guys would join me now to do this is not something to do on your own, but to actually jump in right now. So the invitation is just to close your eyes right now and sit up tall, find a tall spine. And feel your feet flat on the ground. So immediately bring your awareness down into the lower part of your body. And feel the weight of your legs. Feel the heaviness of your pelvis grounding down. Imagine you had a root at the base of your spine penetrating down into the earth. And allow your chest and your heart space, your heart center, to relax open. So relaxing your shoulder blades towards each other, and start to deepen your breath down into your belly, all the way down into your pelvic floor even. Nice full belly breaths. And now I want you to imagine, most of you guys have probably seen some point or another, like the something called the haka, which is like this display that the Maori warriors do before they go into battle. A lot of the soccer teams from New Zealand will do this at the beginning of a match. And to feel this quality of intensity and fierceness and this like part of you that can fight. And feel that sense of intensity in your eyes. And bring that intensity down into your lower body. So breathe it in. And now bringing your heart into it. So imagining the things that are so important to you in this life that you're willing to fight for them. Could be, principles that you stand by. Could be your children. Could be your life partner. So it's this mix of what you love, what you care deeply about, and this willingness to bring this quality of conviction to serve that thing. Or can you feel that in your body? So start to bring those qualities into your body through your breath. Using the breath to kind of amplify the energy of that. And start to feel, if there's sometimes we get too much into the fight, sometimes activists will go there and they forget what they're even fighting for and they just are fighting. So feel your heart in it. Fight for love, fight for truth, fight for goodness. Take one more deep breath, deep as you can, deepest one yet, breathing all the way down into your belly, into your feet, into your legs. Hold the breath at the top. And let it go. And just for a moment with your eyes closed, you can let the practice go, but just notice if anything's kind of shifted for you internally, the nervous system. You can gently open your eyes again. Join us in the call.
Thank you. Thank you, Soma. I saw myself taking a stand for our deepening human connection to the planet and making new choices. Thank you. Beautiful. Wow, good. I feel more grounded and a little bit more present. Thank you, Soma. So we're going to move into the last principle number 3, and we're from there, we'll open up the space a little bit for questions. So also this would be a good time, as you've heard principle 1, 2, and as we go into 3, is to type in questions that you might want us to speak to or answer. We're going to take some questions after principle 3 from the chat, and then as we come to the end of the call, we're going to move into a more interactive Q&A and taking questions live and sharing. And that'll allow us to roll beyond the 60 minutes for whoever wants to share. All right, so principle 3 is embodying deep listening. Embodying deep listening. We feel like this is, as we imagined speaking about this, as we set our intention to it, it's really about understanding and knowing and embodying your presence, your full presence. And in that, from that place of full presence, it's your capacity to listen at all levels, which becomes your most valuable asset in inspiring the trust and collaboration and connection with any being. Maybe mostly human beings, but I would say actually all of life. That you're listening to the forest and the trees and the beach and the ocean, as well as the other human beings. So it's a deep listening. When I say all levels, I mean listening deeply to self, to what's happening inside of you, listening to other, and to all of life, to the planet, to all the other creatures that are here, even if the listening is not about words, right? It's a deep listening below or beyond the words. So that's the definition. Soma?
Just mute myself there. Yeah, and so this, I just want to broaden on that a little bit. This ability to listen, not just to the words somebody's speaking, but all that information that's within the space, and that includes the information that's in our own internal physical and emotional response in what that's like being in relationship with another human or other non-human being. And when it comes to relating with other humans, there's like the body language, right? Which is a majority of communication is coming through that, right? Their posture, their facial expression, tone of voice, the energetic tone that is conveyed within a space. We've all walked into an environment and there was like, the vibe, right? It feels a little off, or it feels really good, right? And I really believe our nervous systems, just like most other animals, like really pick up on these subtleties that are present in spaces. And if we're just ignoring those, if we're just too busy or too trying to get somewhere to tune in to that deeper sense of listening, we're going to miss a lot. We're going to miss the deeper message that's present and available to us. So this is really what we mean by deep listening.
And Soma, I would just like to add, to tie this also back to leadership for this piece particularly, is that we're listening at all levels. We're listening to other human beings. We're listening into the field or the space, and that, great leaders listen really well. And as we all know in our culture now, in our hyper media culture, we are talking at each other all the time. I know we all see it, and we kind of like throw our hands up. It's like talking. I got my point. And what we are all, I think, needing more of is more listening, tuning into what that is, and holding the space for people to speak and share, and then knowing when is the time for me, from a place of wisdom, to share. So deep listening feels like also an antidote to our times a bit as we look toward this new paradigm of leadership. Can I really deeply listen to the space, the field, the vibe, and to other human beings and other beings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Thank you for adding that. And yeah, I'll just use a little personal piece that I'm always kind of working with in my relationship. And, this is my ongoing work, which is about, when my partner shows up to me with an issue that's going on for her. And my default response is to want to problem solve immediately. How can I fix the situation? Because I'm sort of, it's a couple of reasons. I've tracked this back to the why, which is, number one, it's how I feel special and how I make myself valuable in relationship. That's what I learned, is like, if I can fix somebody or help somebody, that's how I feel lovable, which is not really true. And the other piece of that is, I get validation from that. But here's the thing: when I'm not really listening to my partner and I make it about me, which is exactly what's going on there, it just creates further distance and resentment and kind of tension in our dynamic. And because she's not really showing up for me to solve the problem most of the time, unless she directly asks for it, she's really just wanting to be heard. She's wanting her experience to be validated. She wants to be acknowledged for what's going on. And And so, when I show up with this kind of rescuer mode, which I know a lot of men do this because, we're taught in a way to solve problems, which is a gift at times, right? There's nothing wrong with that desire or impulse, but it's what is motivating that? Is this about me, or is this about my partner that I'm with? And so this is my ongoing work. I'm still rewiring this pattern, but I find when I can really show up in that way, it's the intimacy that comes from that just helps me to relax, helps us to feel more connected, helps her to, get through whatever she's getting through much faster than if I were to try to coach her through it, because she has her own wisdom. And if I'm trying to do it my way, then she's going to not be able to access her own gifts in a way. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Soma. Yeah. I can totally recognize how about anybody's just physically raise a hand has been known to be a fixer? I'm going to fix it. I'm going to just get it fixed.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just so think that my value, somehow I've just learned over the years, my value is related to how well I solve problems. How many of you can relate to, here's a nail, I have a hammer, let's go. And every problem looks like a nail and I've got a hammer. It's good, Soma. All right, so we have a practice for 3, but we're going to save that as kind of a capstone practice. So we're going to do that right at the end of the call. So we've got hands up and all that. What we're going to do is just going to there's a couple of questions here, going to answer the questions. Then we want to share with you about our Costa Rica retreat. We're going to do the practice, and then we're going to go right into a more extended Q&A, whoever can stay on. So we just want to make sure we can share some of this stuff with you, essentially complete at an hour, and then let's roll together. If you can stay, it would be wonderful. So one question I see, and somebody help me, I'm going to start with Steve, right? I think that's the one key question, and if something else comes in. But so Steve writes, does this type of practice have to include fighting or the fight for love? This is what Soma and I just talked about, Steve, 2 days ago. Include the fight or the fighting for love, principles, the plan, etc. I don't resonate with fighting because it implies violent resistance. Can we just substitute a word such as stand for or support love, principles, planet? Soma, I knew it would come up. I got to tell you, and maybe you can unpack that, because I was in the same way, Steve. I said, you want to use the word fight? You want to say fight for? And he said, well, there's an energy to that. So go ahead, Soma, share what you know.
And, I think, words certainly have an impact on, to our minds and how we interpret them. So I think stand for is equally as important, or useful terminology that absolutely works there. And if that resonates for you, I support you in using that. What I do like to acknowledge, and we don't have enough time to fully unpack this, is that, we all have a fighter in us. And if we don't acknowledge it, it becomes a shadow part, right? And so, part of integrative work is learning how to bring these things online and channel that same energy, right? We all have a fight response in our nervous system, but we can rewire that fight response, not be coming from fear and aggression out, but aggression for something, right? That's part of what a lot of modern men are missing, is this kind of using our aggression in service to something positive, right? Being assertive for what we stand for. And it's that same quality. If you don't like the word fight, that's totally okay. But if you do, if it resonates for you, then use it. But it's more about my invitation was more about tap into the practice of what does it feel like to have that fierceness, to the willingness to be strong for something that you believe in.
Yeah, thank you. And then we'll wrap with Wade's question. Thank you, Wade. His question is, it feels like most of what was presented was internal work. What is the leadership component? Wade, you bring up a great question here, a great point, in that I've been doing leadership development work for 25 years, both in corporations, also with organizations, and with men and women directly, and a lot of men's work where there's a leadership component. So Wade, the way I'm holding this emerging new paradigm of leadership is good leaders are 95% of the work they're doing is their inner work. That I used to see, Wade, that I used to go through leadership programs that were always about the walk the room and the 1-minute manager, and here's what all these tactics to be a good leader. And what I've seen now in companies all over the world is that the leadership development work is not actually almost any different than personal development work. So it's about, how am I listening? How am I creating a space for diversity? How am I including or not including? These are a lot about almost all about me, Wade. And then when I do that work, Wade, what naturally comes out is the expression of me being a more potent, engaged, connected leader. And then I can't give you any tactics around that. It's just, if I'm leading people and I'm doing my work to connect more to myself through nature, then I bring more groundedness, I bring more clarity, or I have insights from other places other than other human beings. And I bring that to my leadership role. Strength with heart, critical for men. If I bring my heart online and my compassion and empathy, as well as my truth telling, and I bring that to the people I'm leading in some form or fashion, I'm going to be more empowered. I'm empowering others, and I'm going to be seen, and not that you should say this, I'm going to be seen as a leader who really is a good leader, great leader by others. That shouldn't be your marker, though. It shouldn't be, I'm doing this to get the accolades, but that's a part of it. So I'll just pause there. It is the expression of the inner work is the outcome, Wade, that we could point to, but you're going to have your own flavor. Every person will have their own flavor, how they express this out to hold this space to be a better leader. And if these capacities and principles are brought online, more and more you're working with these principles as practices, you'll just show up as a better leader with whatever work you have to do, right? That's just the work. We got to do this, we got to do this, but you'll bring it with different hearts. You'll bring it with more openness. You'll bring it with more discovering the truth and holding space for people and all that. So Soma, anything you want to layer on that? I know we got to get to sharing about the retreat.
No, I mean, I would put it quite simply as like what the work that we do on ourselves internally becomes part of our embodied presence, and that just transmits into everything that we do, how we parent, how we show up in our relationships. It's just becomes an extension of our way of being.
Yes.
So,
and that's really the core of leadership development, is that way, changing that way of being and showing up as the leader we really want to be. And even showing up as the kind of person that we would want to follow, ourselves.
Exactly. Right.
So great. Okay. We're going to switch gears, and we got the final practice. So hopefully you guys can stay on. So Soma and I, this is just a flavor of the work that we want to do and the exploration that Soma and I want to do in our new retreat that we've created. It's a 6-day retreat in Costa Rica called Emergence. And Emergence is going to be a deep dive with just 15 men in an incredible villa overlooking the Pacific Ocean. That's our home base. And we're going to be spending time in nature every day, time in circle with each other, exploring these topics and others around really what is moving me now in my life. So the essence of emergence is what is emerging in you, what wants to come out now in any part of your life. Could be some aspect of your life or relationship, but it certainly could be your work or a part of your work or a service project or something that's wanting to arise. And so it's like, how do you rise up into this next level of your life, of your giving of your gifts, of your contribution? And we want to explore that together in a very intimate environment where we're going deep with each other. We're having a lot of fun together. We're in our bodies. We're doing embodied practices. And so there's a lot of excitement and juice around, wow, let's do this in the wild beauty of Costa Rica. And so,
and I just arrived in Costa Rica last night, so I'm already feeling it. I feel more alive and more connected. I'm just super excited to be here. I'm going to be here for the next month, which is amazing. But just to share a little bit more around the intention of the retreat, which is it's here to support you in finding the clarity that enables you to commit to a path and have the confidence to face any obstacles, because we all are going to face challenges, especially when we orient to a deeper purpose. the intention is to help you tap into a vision for your future and to create a practical roadmap to get there. We are supporting men to move beyond the lone wolf mentality and embrace the support, reflection, and galvanizing force of brotherhood. We are intending to support men to do some of this shadow work, to integrate that darkness, whatever that looks like for you, and to work with your vulnerability so they can all become fuel for your journey. They're all necessary passages to move through so that you can move into this bigger vision. And we're also going to be bringing back the power of play, which a lot of us, as we get older, we lose contact with, and tapping into how, when we get out of our heads and into our bodies, we access flow states and access new energy, new creativity to help feed into your mission. And, finally, just that deep nature connection is all about getting nourished on a soul level and helping our nervous systems to regulate and soften open so that we can receive the beauty and wisdom of the ocean and the jungle and the animals, all of that just coming in to feed us in a deep way.
Yeah. And I live now, some of you know this because I know some of you know me. I now live full-time in Costa Rica. I live in Santa Teresa, and we're going to be hosting this retreat in Dominical, which is just a little bit south of me here, which is a beautiful coastal town in southern Costa Rica on the Pacific coast. And so just to let you know that it's just for 15 men. I put the link in the chat there, so you can certainly open the page and learn more. We're going to dive into these principles. So these principles are going to underpin sort of what we're going to be doing. And we're also going to create the space for each man to actually get the sort of the support and the insight from the other men in kind of these personal masterminding sessions. So we're going to have the nature-based time and play, personal masterminding sessions, and we have even a couple of breakthrough experiences that are going to be a mystery. We're not going to tell you now, but we're going to do some things that can create openings and possibility for you to get deeper insight, to have some kind of experience of, an aha moment, a moment of wonder and aha. So the retreat is at the end of March. So it's March 24th to 29th. We would love to, have you. You can go to the page there and you can read all about it. You can sign up. For anybody that chooses to sign up, the way we're doing this is you can just when you click on the button, you'll just make a deposit, and then we'd love to have a phone call or a Zoom call with you and just, make sure it's a fit and it works for you and you're excited about the program. So that's our retreat. And also we have, so let me just do a quick, I'm going to do a quick screen share, folks, here. So this is what if you'll see, can you see that, Soma, now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the page. So the link is there. If you're going to put the link again in there, Soma, that'd be great, because it might have been buried.
Yeah.
But just to show you here, so this is all the kind of info. So just take a look at, Soma and I did a lot of research to try to find a home base. And this is our house, our home base, the villa in Dominical, that we can fit 15 people all in one place. So it's literally 100 feet up the bluff overlooking the Pacific. Incredible outdoor space for our practices that we're going to do, our embodied practices, and for our circle time and all that. So, and you'll see here what's all the things that are included in it. And then we just wanted to point out that we've been, offering this for the last month or so, couple months. And so we have an early bird pricing that ends tomorrow. Actually, you put the 23rd. I think we said the 24th, Soma, or did we say the 23rd? Well, we'll honor it tomorrow, today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
that could have been a mistake. So we'll go till the 24th. What today's the 23rd, huh?
Yeah. So we'll go to the 24th. So you can click sign up. We'll book a call, and you can I would love to have you. And we've got a bunch of men already signed up and committed, so we have some slots left. But we expect in the next couple of days, hopefully, and in the next few days, we'll be filling up the retreat. So there's that. And any other, I think we're beyond time a little bit now. So let's do this. I'm going to do the final practice. There's still a bunch of you here. And then feel free to stay on after this final practice. And we're going to go right into interactive Q&A. Okay. So just kind of letting all those words go here. And so it's another just quick visualization. I normally would do this longer, as Soma said, but we're going to kind of keep it short. So once again, if you ground yourself, feel your butt in your seat, feel your feet on the floor, and allow your eyes to close if you're willing. If you're in a car, don't do that. But just kind of come back to where you were before. Come back to your body, find your breath, and deepen your breath.
You know, this is a practice around embodying deep listening. And in my experience, the more I can learn to listen to myself, the more I listen well with others. It's the intimacy with self allows me to be intimate with the rest of creation, just as a practice. So this is a way of listening to your body, and it's a somatic practice. And so just close your eyes, and I want you to bring your attention to something in your body that you know, maybe there's some tension or some discomfort in your body that you're noticing. So just bring your attention fully to it. And more often than not, we're conditioned to kind of move away from what's uncomfortable. So this is an opportunity to turn towards it and notice what's there. And just imagine that even though it might not physically be possible, imagine you could just breathe into it gently, whatever that sensation is. And now I'm going to invite you, if it works for you, to stay with the sensation. And I'm going to give you some prompts to actually speak aloud into the space. And your first prompt is, you know, if you could say, what's the texture of that sensation? What is the texture of it? Whatever it is, just name a quality of texture. And taking a breath and breathing into it again. And what's the color of that sensation? Just imagining it had a color. If it had a color, what would it be? You're now taking another breath. And if that sensation had a shape, what would it be? Taking another breath. And if that sensation had a temperature, what would it be? Taking one more breath. And now if it could speak, what would it say? So if it had a voice, what would it say? Just allow your words to speak whatever comes through you. What does it have to say? And just trust what comes. And taking one more breath, we're going to close the practice there. Letting the breath go. And keeping your eyes closed for a moment. Just notice if anything's shifted in those last couple of minutes of just bringing your attention to that part of your body. And let's bring some curiosity to that. Whatever words were spoken, maybe it had some insight or value. might not have made sense, and that's okay too. And you can gently open your eyes. Great. Yeah. So I'm sorry we lost Chris. I'm not sure. Hopefully he's okay over there in Santa Teresa. We're in different parts of Costa Rica right now. So
I'm
yeah.
back.
Okay. Oh, you're back. Did you come in earlier? I just didn't notice you or something.
No, I just got back. How far
Okay.
was I into my visualization?
No, you didn't even get into it. So I let it without you.
Okay.
So we're good. Perfect timing, actually.
Right. Awesome. Well, hey,
Yeah.
folks, this is the challenge. Costa Rica normally has great internet, but once in a while, boom, just dropped out.
Yeah. And
So
then, I just want to acknowledge, like this is part of what we're trying to practice and also bring to this retreat is this emergent style of leadership. Like this is what, I trust that this is how it needed to happen. I needed to lead you guys through that practice. Chris needed to disappear for a minute and, and that's, I could have freaked out in that moment and maybe I did a little bit, but, this is how we learn to roll and lead despite uncertainty. And I really believe that this is the most important leadership quality that we're learning to step into is like, what do we do? How do we work with this uncertainty? Because I think we're going to be dealing with a lot more of that in the near future.
Yeah. Beautiful. Did we start the open Q&A?
No, we're just ready for that now. So I know some
Great.
people I think might have their hands up or something, or at least Jonathan. Yeah. So why don't we start with Jonathan Meyerhoff, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, please. Thanks, Afif. Yeah, Jonathan, you're on mute, and we don't see your camera on either. Maybe let's just pop into Robin's question while we so you can. Oh, are you there, Jonathan?
I'm here now.
Okay,
great.
Yeah, I think I accidentally hit the hand. I'm on
okay.
On the beach and it's very sunny, but I love what you guys are doing. But you can move on to the next, and I don't really have any questions at the moment.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for that, Jonathan. And then Soma, can you make me co-host, Soma?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
And also you've got people on Spotlight. Maybe just take Spotlight off for just a second.
Yeah. I tried to Spotlight Jonathan. I'm not that great at Zoom, but
I can do that. I can just do that if I have co-host.
No, I think I got it. Okay. It sounds like somebody's unmuted here too, though. Is there somebody that's unmuted?
Yeah, I'll check that. It's Jonathan.
Like raise my hand.
Hey, Jonathan, if you could just mute yourself.
I got him. Okay. All right. So there we go. So we have Windsor. Yeah, Windsor. Hello.
Hey guys. Yeah, thanks for hosting this. So my question is about like various cultures and organizational cultures and how your paradigm like would fit or not fit. And I'm curious to hear your guys' perceptions on or thoughts on like, adapting it. Like, so for example, I'm in the military, I'm in the Navy, I'm a commander, right? If I came up to my boss with like, intense vulnerability, that might not go over so well depending on what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to pick your guys' brain on that kind of issue. How would you adapt this to fit various cultures, business cultures or organizations like that?
Yeah, thank you, Windsor. That's a great question. I'll kick it off, and then I'm sure someone will have more to share. Yeah, I do feel like first and foremost that, as was asked as another question earlier, Windsor, is that so much of what we're pointing to here is just your own work. For you to be more you, just more capacity that nobody has to even see. And then my hope is the adaptation is whatever the culture is that you're in, is that your strength with heart is going to look different than someone else's. And Windsor, that your ability to just hold a compassionate space for someone without having to say anything, to really, when somebody's just gone through the shit and there's been something that's gone bad, that's really freaked somebody out, you know how to bring more maybe compassion and understanding in that moment, but you're still going to bring your words and your way and your style to that. But what's underneath that is, instead of an old school, like, just fucking toughen up, dude. Like, what the, if there's that old school thing, and I have lots of friends in the military and they say it's changing dramatically, the level of understanding and care and compassion, but in the way that's, you bring it, with your bros. So you bring that in your own way, you bring your own style, but underneath that is knowing you are developing capacities to be more present, more aware, more compassionate, more thoughtful. And you can also remember, strength with heart is bringing more truth with clarity, more truth with heart, laying it out there, not trying to hide or around it. And I know in your line of work and in the military, you got to bring that truth. People get killed if you don't. So, but in other corporate cultures, Windsor, all that dancing around in that politics, sometimes that truth telling is what that organization needs. And if I'm a leader that can bring that in a hearted way, then that can actually start to change that culture, rather than adapt myself to the culture and stay small. And so this is about change in organizations. And I've been in organizations, Windsor, where there's a great leader here and a terrible leader here and a great leader there and a terrible leader here in the same organization. And what I'm seeing is that these capacities we're talking about is really where great leaders are shining, because they're listening, they bring a certain care, they're speaking truth to power, they're stepping up, they're taking on more purpose in the organization, they're taking a stand for things that they believe are important. That's key. Mm-hmm. So I hope that helps a little bit, Windsor. And then I know Soma might have some comments too.
Yeah, I mean, that was really well said. I wouldn't add much more, other than, with this way of being and operating, we have to face that uncertainty and that risk that I was talking about earlier. And obviously, as you practice it, you also practice it with discernment, right? It's not like you just kind of spill the beans everywhere at all times, right? There's a sense, like, when I actually believe these practices make us more sensitive to what's appropriate to a given circumstance. And that sensitivity is not an oversensitivity to, like, that's coming from fear, like, I'm just going to, like, tiptoe around and, like, never speak my truth, but like an attunement to what is going to serve this moment, what is going to serve this relationship. Do I need to bring something here that is going to help this situation to expand or evolve or shift? And that comes from that deep listening to self, and we get these little impulses in our gut, in our heart, that are trying to guide us. And when we learn to listen to those things, it's actually really useful and insightful.
Yeah, thank you, Soma.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. Thanks for that. And I kind of one other just quick side question is, for this upcoming retreat, how many of these have you guys done before?
Great question. This actual retreat, Windsor, is the first time for Soma and I. Soma, I've been doing men's work and men's retreats for 25 years, and also been doing leadership retreats for many years. And this is kind of the first time.
We lost him again. So anyway, I'll pick up where he left off. So I also have a couple of decades of experience in men's work as well. So, this is a first joint venture, and, part of we're practicing what we preach here by stepping into this and creating from that space of what wants to move through us as this co-creative partnership, with life itself. And that's where this vision for this retreat is being born from. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Well, I'll just try to work with you guys while Chris returns. And, looks like Jonathan, I don't know if that was still, his hand was still up from before, but Jonathan Meyerhoff, love to have you jump in if you want to unmute, if you're still got a question. If not, I'll move on to Firelight.
No, I'm just saying it's still up from before. Sorry about that.
Okay,
I can't
okay.
even see my screen. It's so bright out here.
Yeah.
But
I'm not that
okay.
great. I think there's a way for me to put your hand down, but I'm not sure how to do
Yeah.
that. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So Firelight, are you here with us?
I would love to be where Jonathan is.
I know, it looks nice out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I am curious. I was given your website by my shamanic teacher, Christina Pratt out of Portland,
Nice.
and I'm considering doing some men's work myself, and I'm familiar with the Mankind Project. And I'm just sort of curious how you feel your work stands out, or what's unique about this this program you're offering.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you followed up on Chris's background, but he's like that 25 years of men's work was actually through Mankind Project. So he's like trained as like a lead facilitator for them. And in terms of how we stand out from other men's organizations, I mean, I can only speak to what I've experienced directly, so I can't compare myself to all. Like, I do track what's happening on my periphery a little bit, but I'll just speak to what feels unique is really what we're presenting here. It's like we're actually developing our own core models of leadership, and looking at this idea of masculinity as a not a prescriptive thing, that it's something that we live into. My brand, The Essential Man, is about it's fundamentally about men tapping into their essential self, that true self that some people might call it their soul. So it's that the deepest part of our essence that, to me, is in command of our destiny, what we're here to do on planet Earth from a more like spiritual lens, right? So, that's just my own unique take on it. I think that's our greatest work, is to live our Dharma and to bring that forward into the world and follow that deep calling. And, I think there's a lot of other men's organizations that support similar principles. But I also see a lot of stuff out there that, becomes a little bit more prescriptive, especially nowadays. I wouldn't say Mankind Project is that, but it's like, men are supposed to be this way, so this is how you show up as a man. So my invitation is to create experiences for men to understand themselves deeper, whatever that looks like for them, and to bring that forward into the world with more confidence and trust. Hope that answers your question a little bit. If you want to reframe it for Chris, now that he's back on the call, we could. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that was helpful. I was just asking, I was saying I'm familiar with the Mankind Project, which it sounds like, Chris, you have a lot of experience with, but just asking what the sort of unique offering or perspective was that you're bringing with this approach. With
the retreat, or these principles? What's the
both, either one.
Yeah. I think what's unique for me is, doing the men's work with the Mankind Project. A lot of it is process work, particularly looking at our shadows and how to work with those, and our belief structures, and then how to step into our mission of service in the world. What was really missing for me was this deep connection to the natural world and doing that work there. That's one reason why Soma and I said, let's do this in Costa Rica. Let's not do this in a hotel in Orlando, something like that. So we want to do this in a place where that natural setting is so. It's like a third guide, a third facilitator, even more potent than Soma and I. That's what had been missing for a lot of the men's work I've done, which is more the process work, circle work, and all that's wonderful. And this retreat will have some of that. But as we spend time in mindful practice in nature and have play and fun, I can almost guarantee you're going to have some opening, some insight, some moment. every time I do that in nature, where I allow myself to be guided and led, or ask a question, there's something that arises for me that's from nature, from Gaia. So that's we're bringing that together. We're bringing the men's work together, the leadership work and the nature together in a juicy mix.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Does that resonate with you too, about wanting to be with good men in nature, kind of doing that shoulder to shoulder as well as process work? I'm just curious if that lands for you, if that resonates with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, I have had some amazing experiences in the Sespe wilderness. So I was really relating well to Soma there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Sounds like a really great experience.
Yeah. Well, Firelight, I'd love to have you. And Soma, I don't know if the site, is it still book a call with us, Soma, or did that change?
No, it should. No, it's set up that if people are like a yes to this, like if you're feeling like this is calling me, and this is part of our invitation too, is like a lot of us when making decisions get into this like sort of paralysis analysis and like should I we've already been through this with a number of guys that have booked a call with us, and our invitation is, if you feel called, like if there's a yes in your body, if your heart is saying like there's something that feels right about it, the invitation is to trust that, because that's part of these leadership principles. Is can I lean into trusting something beyond my mind to guide me in my life, and so you could it's set up so that if you feel that yes and you want to join us, you can make your first payment on the website. It's with that discount, I think it's like a $700 payment, and I think we have to change the discount code is Emerge23, Chris. So if you could correct that.
Oh, it is? Yeah. Are you sure? We deleted the other one.
Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. we've gone through this a few times. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so here's
it is Emerge. Yeah.
And here's the offer. So Firelight, or any of you that are thinking or leaning in, sign up, book it, and then we can have a call. And if it's not the right fit, we'll just give you your money, that deposit back. Yeah. So we just want good men. Like, our intention is to have a curated group of men. We just want good men to have this experience together. So if it's like not a fit for you, we're like, fine, let's give your money back. But we really would love to have that connection. So if you sign up, we'll make sure we have a call with you, and we can talk about the retreat experience.
Yeah, and we do want the right men there. So if it doesn't feel like a fit, we'll tell you. That's just this is for men that are at a certain place in their life where they are ready to embody something new. Yeah.
And we've got a good group of men so far that I think the age range is 30 to 65.
Yeah.
Kind of 30s, 40s somethings. And the man that's 65 is sort of an outlier, but I just love that we've got that bookend, that it's going to be this rich experience of the full range of age and life experience in different parts of the world, some coming from Costa Rica, some from the US, and Canada as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions about either the content we shared, you're sitting with, or about the retreat? And I see Deb here. It's so good to see you, Deb. And thank you for being here. It's been a long time since I've seen you on a call. I used to sit on the national board of MKP USA, and Deb's been a big part of supporting the Mankind Project. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
So any other questions, comments?
Hey, y'all, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yeah, no, it's good. I can see you. Yeah. I don't know why Chris can't see you. Yeah. What's your name? I see your name is Test. Is that your actual name or just screen?
No, that's awesome. That's awesome that that's what. Now I'm like on my phone. I never did. I didn't even sign up for this. I just got an email randomly, and I was like, all right, and I clicked it. And,
oh wow.
My name is Vlad Leo.
Well,
Great to meet you both. Just have a question, and feel free to totally not answer it. It might be inappropriate, but I gotta ask.
yeah.
I was curious. You mentioned there's some of these surprise, expansive experiences. Are any of them psychedelic?
Good question. So I'll just respond to that because, I think we will be leading experiences that could be considered psychedelics, but we're not necessarily taking psychedelic medicine. So, and we are considering that possibility and maybe like a microdose. And this is a slight possibility depending on like a group consensus, but yeah, right now, like, we're going to be doing a lot of embodied practice and leading you guys through experiences that, psychedelic, the definition of it is like mind expanding, right? So it's meant to kind of move you beyond the normal sphere of being and seeing reality. And that is the intention for a lot of these exercises, actually.
Yeah, and thanks, Vlad, for saying that too. And if there was any like a microdosing piece to it, it would be optional, and we kind of want to check in with the group itself. But I will say, just because you're asking directly, it'll be an element of altered state through breath work will be one. Mm-hmm. And there'll be other stuff that's not medicine related that will be a breakthrough experience, and we're not going to share that. But that's one example, right, Vlad, mm-hmm. where we're gonna go deep into that.
Cool. And then a follow-on question, if you have space for it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What is like the transformation that people are going to experience through this journey? So let's say someone goes in, they put in the deposit. Is there any sort of like preparatory work or after integration work? Is it mostly just that chunk? And if this you're talking about it in a couple months and it was just a slam dunk, what would be the outcomes that folks would be walking away with?
That's a great question. And that in some ways, thank you for saying that, Vlad, because we probably could have said that more a bit when we first started talking about the retreat. So here's the thing is I'll start and then I'm sure someone will have more to add. First, from a technical standpoint, there is going to be a call before the retreat to kind of meet each other. There's going to be the retreat. And then for 2 months after the retreat, Vlad, we're going to have 2 calls a month as an integration. We're going to call those integration calls. So there's going to be a flow of getting to know the men, having the retreat, and then the post-retreat work. And our intention for the transformation that's possible is, it's probably this simple as this, is that you have more clarity and more energy and even more commitment for whatever that next step in your life that you declare in the retreat, and even coming out of the retreat in those integration calls that you want to step into. And that clarity is already moving you into action, or you feel like there are some steps you can take where the men in the circle and the group can support you, cheer you on, and even hold you accountable to making those steps. So the transformation is that you're more excited about some aspect of your life, you're on a trajectory that moves you, that feels purposeful, and that it's bringing you more alive, and you're feeling more aligned with your life and what you want for your life.
So it sounds like the major elements are clarity about some type of change or growth that someone wants to experience, some type of sort of a plan or a strategy to move forward, the momentum of actually sort of starting it in person, and then the accountability through relationships afterwards. Are those, is that the main?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then just the actual experience transformation, those are like the tactical steps, is that you're going to feel more alive in your life, more aligned, and more just maybe more on purpose, or more, in a direction that feels most juicy for you, most aligned for you.
So would you say it's sort of like an ideal somatic reference experience that you can then tap into as you move forward and life starts coming at you?
Yeah, Soma, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. And yes, absolutely. You're going to have deeply embodied experiences that your body will remember. And, you know, there will be encouragement post-retreat as you integrate to stay with these practices, because, you know, what I see with a lot of retreats, and this includes people that are doing a lot of plant medicines and this kind of thing, is there's not a ton of integration, right? They're just like, oh, I'm going to go blast off and have myself open wide to the universe. And it's like so much that it's really difficult to integrate. That's been my experience with it, right? So, and that's in some ways why I don't, you know, I'm not a big fan of these like super intense plant medicine journeys, because, you know, maybe in super right context and right environment, there can be a lot of value to it. But in my experience, the integration and the community piece is really missing from most of these ceremonial type experiences. So we really want you to use the deep bonds that are formed with these other men to help propel you forward, and to make your insights and your visions real in the world. It's not just about like, I'm just going to have this isolated experience. You're going to connect to the energy of that in your body. You'll be able to remember that and take that home with you and continue to practice it. And we'll be supporting you as we follow up from the retreat.
Groovy. Thank
How
you.
does that sound, Vlad? Like, how's that landing for you in your body, in your heart?
Yeah, I guess I feel a sense of like curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could keep going with questions, but I want to see if anyone else has any. I don't want to monopolize.
Yeah, thank you,
my-
Vlad. Let's come back to you. I do see Steve here, so let's go to Steve, and then if we have more, we'll stay on longer. Hey, Steve.
Hey, thank you. This has been very enlightening. And Soma, I want to say I'm totally with you on that. I'm not really drawn to the psychedelics myself. There's so much that can be done even without that. And I'm just curious because I noticed it seems to be a lot of younger men that are that this is appealing to, and I'd be older than anyone in this retreat because I'm 66, and I'm wondering if you guys have considered or would consider doing something for seniors or for men who have difficulty traveling, which I do. Is this something that could ever be adapted to a hybrid model, or where people could zoom in from their homes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if we can fully answer it because we haven't really gotten there, but it's a good seed to plant for us. I mean, we certainly, both of us have done a number of, online based programs. There's a challenge, especially to how do we have an experience in nature, from Zoom, that would be hard to integrate into that. But, I think it's important to consider, as I understand that certain people are challenged with travel and their bodies have certain limits. So, yeah.
And let me ask you this, Steve, though, do you feel like, because we have one of the men, Ed, is 65 and he has a few ailments. Can you travel to Costa Rica, or is that out? Like, that's not even a possibility in your physical body?
It's a possibility. It's just very difficult for me, so I don't enjoy it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good. The long flights and the travel and
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And if it were ever done via Zoom, people who live in single family homes could possibly just do it out in their backyard if it's not too noisy. Or someone like me who lives in a condo apartment in Florida could go to a park that has Wi-Fi. I was just like you said, a seed.
That's great. I mean, that's a great reminder that we can make, that's also a part of being more accessible and being more inclusive. So I'm always looking for greater accessibility. And if somebody was interested like you, I never thought somebody would be interested in, like they want to go and be in the nature. But you bring up a great point, is if some want to join that way, we have a Zoom camera in the room and you go out into your park or your backyard and do the practices. And I think that's something for Soma and I to think about, to make it more accessible globally for men.
Wow, Chris, thank you for reflecting that back to me. You just kind of modeled the deep listening, and I really received it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Could see that I was really heard and understood.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you offering that, saying, "Hey, what about this?" So we get to put that into our thinking mix now. And for me, I love the idea of a global community, men coming together that can't even afford to fly, let alone the physical elements of flying. So thank you for that.
And some of us older men are so kind of become set in our ways. We may be more difficult to work with in a way because we've been through hell and back, right? And we've been so conditioned with the patriarchal thinking and the men don't cry and all that. So it'd be a real challenge for you guys. You might have to take some kind of vision vine to be able to deal with us.
Steve. And Steve, what's so funny is most people don't know this about me because I look a lot younger. So I'm 57. And we have two other men in their late 50s that are going to be there, and then a few in 30s. So it's all over the map. And so one of the guys I think he's going to be in the same boat as you. I'm pretty set in my ways. Let's see what you guys got. Let's see what you got. So yeah, well, I'm always up for the challenge. So I'm a co-leader of the Mankind Project's New Warrior Training Adventure and been leading that for years. And that is a space where all ages are there. And look, I have worked in process work with many men, Steve, much older, 70s and 80s, in this intensive container, who have had amazing breakthroughs because they were the hard nut to crack and they came out the other side. So I'm always up for holding space for any man, no matter what age. And this idea of too hard to work with is never in my being, in my state. So
I'm happy to hear that. Let me just make one last comment. Because I live in South Florida, I'm surrounded by nature year round and it's all around me. So for me to schlep all the way to Costa Rica granted it's even more dramatic and more pure and beautiful, but it's all around me, and I'm mostly retired, so I understand why so many people need that place has power. They need that experience, the journey, the trip, being in a new place, surrounded by new people, and surrounded by that incredible Pacific Ocean and the greenery and all that. I kind of live there. My daily life is very peaceful, so that part is just not what really would draw me, but it's the connection with you guys, the wisdom, the heart sharing, and all of that.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Stephen. You're just nailing it. Like that, we're trying to create this blend of what you just said, where the nature component is only going to be half the day. It's not like and then the other part is going to be a circle time, reflection time, process work, personal masterminding. It's all the stuff that I think you said you would love because it's that deep connection, and nature is kind of woven in with that. So we're attempting to do what you just said, is create all those experiences into one kind of juicy mix.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Awesome. Any other questions or comments? I see Lauren here too. It's great to see you, Lauren. Lauren, we have another connection through one of my other businesses, Launch Academy. So it's good to see you here, Lauren. And then if no questions, let's go back to you, Vlad. We love your questions too. So that might spur somebody else as well.
All right, let's do it. So I was curious how y'all are like blending your unique medicines together. Like, why are you doing this together? And this is just my curiosity. How do you each complement each other in sort of this dance of transformation, if you will?
Good question. You want me to start? Someone, you want to start?
I mean, I don't have an immediate response if you have something. Yeah.
It's a great question, Vlad. I think, Soma and I have known each other now about 6 years now, 6 years or so.
Maybe a little longer.
Maybe a little longer.
7, yeah.
And just kind of circling around each other, Vlad. You know what I mean? Oh, he's doing this cool thing with the Essential Man and he's tracking what I'm doing. And we stayed connected. And it literally is one of those things, Vlad, where this is where we're trusting some wisdom coming from somewhere. This is the deeper listening piece. It's could be the nature piece, but this is the deeper listening piece. Is we had a conversation about both being here in Costa Rica. He bought land here too. We're here, my wife and I, we're building a house, and Soma's going to be a little bit after us. So that was the conversation is, oh, what's going on? When are you coming down here? What's it? And literally out of that was this kind of deeper conversation about what are you up to and what are you doing with your men? And here's something that I'm excited about, this nature-based leadership work. And that conversation, this is the beauty of a conversation, sparked us to say, let's do this. And frankly, to be transparent with you, Vlad, we're both very skilled facilitators and creating programs and stuff. We hatched this idea in December. And we decided, and we started marketing it in January, and we just said, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Obviously, we would have loved to have 6 months advance notice for people and like, oh, I can get it on my calendar. But we went for it. And so there was something about our energy together. I would say, to your point, is that Soma is a very grounded, present, kind of, there's an earthy quality to Soma. You can probably feel that. And if you had to say what was the element for Chris Kyle, might say fire, maybe a little bit, right? The kind of fiery, so I tend to bring a lot more fire and energy, and even my, skin tone and my hair, I'm like a fireball. So it's like we blend in this beautiful way. I know I can find my earthiness and my groundedness, but overall there's like a sparky, fiery energy, and Soma brings such a grounding, peaceful, earthy energy that we know that complements each other well. I mean, we can recognize that in each other. And then he can meet and bring the fire, and I can drop in, and we can bring water between us and all the elements, the air and the ether. So I think it's really just our connection, and then that spark, and then knowing that we complement each other well.
Yeah. I would just add that, the way that I operate in my life in general is to trust these kind of deeper impulses that we've been talking about on the call. And also part of that is a relational experience. So there's certain people where I get a sense of them, like, here's a man that I trust deeply. I trust that he can hold certain qualities that I can kind of relax into, or bounce off of creatively. And one of the things that I appreciate, I don't know if anybody on the call is a musician, but I think the way that good musicians work together is there's a deep listening, right? They're really tuned into each other, and especially like a jazz musician or something, like, what's happening in the moment? How can I adapt to what's happening and create from there? And that's part of this experience is, it's not just us, it's the men that are also showing up, that are going to be there, that are going to co-create this with us. Even though we might be facilitating it, there's a greater something that will come through the collective.
Beautiful. Great question, Vlad. We've got a couple more questions here. So Windsor, and then we're going to go to Arnold. Hey, Windsor.
Yeah, hey guys. So my question is a logistics question. Like, how do we get to you guys? You fly in, or what's the deal?
Oh, great. Yeah, great question. So logistics. So we're going to be doing this in Dominical, Costa Rica, which is on the Pacific coast. So you'll fly into San Jose, and then you get a puddle jumper air flight to Dominical, and they have multiple flights a day. So it starts on the 24th. Some people could get possibly all the way through to Dominical on the 24th, but if you want to extend your time, Windsor, to coming in on the 23rd, taking a little time in San Jose, and then or getting to Dominical early, that's totally up to you. We have some men that are already going to take some days on either side to just extend their time. And so you'll fly in, and then there'll be a transfer, just a short transfer to the home, to the villa. And that's it. And then we start, and we go from the 24th in the evening. So we'll have like a kind of a dinner gathering, and then a session after, and then we'll wrap at lunch on the 29th, so that men could possibly get an afternoon flight out, or just again take an overnight in San Jose and go out on the 30th.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. Actually, do you happen to know like how much a little puddle jumper flight would like runs?
Yeah, it's about $100.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. And then, and just Windsor, you bring up a great point just about the overall kind of logistics. So the retreat is all inclusive minus the flights. So I just want to be super clear. We're actually bringing in a private chef. And so we're going to have really good, organic, healthy food that's going to be made for us. The accommodations, of course, is taken care of, and then all the activities. So flight and then the fee for the retreat everything is included in there.
You just got to get yourself there.
Just get yourself there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I hope, Windsor, I would love to have you if you're willing.
I'm thinking about it. I gotta look at my various calendars and see if I can work it out, or maybe even drive down instead of fly. I don't know. I was just looking at it's about 15 hours from here.
Oh yeah, where are you based?
Honduras.
Yeah,
I'm in Honduras.
Yeah. Okay. Oh wow,
yeah.
that's cool.
That's right.
Yeah.
You could drive. Awesome, Windsor. Would love to have you. Vlad would love to have you. Well, all of you would love to have you. But just, it's so good to hear the energy and the interest from you men. So thanks, Windsor. And let's go to Arnold. Hi, Arnold. Are you, you're off mute, but we can't hear you yet, Arnold.
No, now you're muted again. I wonder if his microphone is connected.
Yeah, you might have to pick up, go to the microphone button and make sure your microphone is selected to the right place.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go into the preferences on Zoom. And if you can't figure it out, Arnold, if it's easy enough, you could post your question in the chat if you know how to chat.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Oh, there we go.
There you are.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Gotcha.
that's great.
Yeah.
I mostly just want to offer comments, and maybe some question will come. I'm with Steve, who talked earlier about possibility of doing Zoom. First of all, I'm really very impressed with what I'm hearing. It's just outstanding to what you guys are doing. I spent about 25 years in men's work, not Mankind Project, different type of organizations. And this feels like, to me, is like meeting in a parking lot. It's cool to have this energy vibes coming my way. I would love to go there. I have to talk to my boss.
Well, Arnold, we'd love to have you.
Right, but I gotta figure things out if that's gonna work out. But I love the idea of what you guys doing. I'm spending a lot of time last couple of years on international Zoom calls, on those calls also about important way how to evolve to the future. And most of the people on those calls are women, 80%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Men need to have their own venue, how to grow up and how to move into their own nature. I very much agree with nature.
Yeah, thank you, Arnold. And one thing that I've known from my own experience over the last 25 years is it's beautiful to have a men's circle doing the work that they need to do and women doing their work, and then coming together. That kind of combination is really powerful. Because some would always say, why can't we all do it together? All do it together. All do it together. All genders. But you've just pointed to an important thing that I know in my own work is that sometimes when I'm held by good men, that's just men, I open up in a different way and I trust in a different way than a mix of men and women. So that's a big part of my purpose work, Arnold, is to continue to support men on their journey of self-discovery, their journey of purpose, their journey of, strength of heart. So that's the circle, the men's circles that then also honor and acknowledge the women's circles and then do the work together at some point.
Yes, I totally with you. And I was saying that men have to catch up quite a bit.
I agree with that.
A lot of catching up needs to happen for men. And it seems to be, it's not happening. Yes.
I never want to do a shame or blame for men. Arnold, I'm still with you. But to your point is, yes, there is like a kind of a sort of a catching up of bringing more of ourselves forward in this new way that we talked about today. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
I actually, ironically, I didn't think we'd go this long. I have a 3 o'clock call, Central Time. So I think we're going to need to wrap up here. But let's just offer this. First of all, thank you all for being here and staying on. There's still 16 of you, or 14 of you plus Soma and I. And I'm just so grateful for all of you to stay on another hour, asking great questions, listening. So our invitation is, if you feel called and feel inspired, even if you're on the fence, just, just make that leap and we can have a conversation. And if it doesn't feel right in the next few days or weeks, that's okay too. And you can, we can just say, okay, great. So we'd love to have you on the retreat, and let's put the link in one more time. Soma, there it is, right there. The coupon. So just save it. Even if you're just still thinking and on the fence, save all this information. The coupon code is emerge. That gets you the $500 off. So it's the link emerge. And then once you book that, we can create a call. We'll set up a call.
Yeah, thanks Steve for being here, and everybody else. Appreciate it. And definitely jump in if it feels right for you, and hope to see some of you soon.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Be well. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you later. Ciao.